Oh, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Swingman podcast. It is podcast number 107. And as always, I'm your host, George St. Ledger, joined as I am all the time by Louis Halpin and Lewis Howard. We've reached it. We got there. The Warriors won it all. Wasn't in five like I predicted, but none of us actually got it in the end, did we? I think that was it.
No, I'm low-key fuming. On the predictions one, I said 6 and backtracked and went to 7 after, and they ended up doing it in 6. Could have had it bang on.
Yeah, always go with what you think first. But all came to a clutch. Steph Curry walking away with Finals MVP. He finally got one. Told all the haters to shush. That was what he said, and not in the words of Nico, but yeah, just to shush. And it's all said and done. I mean, what else is there really to talk about in terms of the Warriors win? How do we want to break this down?
I mean, I will say commiserations to the Boston Celtics. They had a great postseason, but I think in the end, the inexperience showed. I think that some of the things you saw come up as issues in the other series in the playoffs, like being careless with the ball, the turnovers being high, I think they reared their ugly head a little bit, and especially in the closeout game. So I don't have too much to say other than, Steph finally got his Finals MVP. There's no one that can really say he's got something missing anymore. And with the Celtics, I'd say, look, they're a young team. They're going to make mistakes. They'll probably be back in this position in the future at some point. They've got such a good core there.
I think it's a game. It's a series. I think that you can say that got away from Boston. I think the Boston Celtics could definitely look back at it and say that there are certain games in there that they definitely should have won. But like you said, it's a young team. If they improve from it and go back next year, then yeah, you can definitely take it as a learning curve. But it's one of them.
I would say it's probably quite a regretful series for Jason Tatum. I think last time we came on here, we was like, he's going to have to perform in sort of one game in this series if they're going to stand a chance of winning. I thought he might do it in the next game, that home court advantage, but he didn't ever seem to put it together, unfortunately. And yeah, I suppose there's a bit to dissect there of why he struggled so much. I know Andrew Wiggins done a fantastic job on him defensively. And I think, Steph will obviously take the plaudits and the legacy conversations, I guess, will probably put him in top 10 conversations, maybe, discuss about greatest point guards of all time and everything like that. But I think they don't win this series without the contributions of a big Andrew Wiggins, because I don't think Jordan Poole, Draymond were particularly inspiring in this series. Jordan Poole had his spurts like he does. I don't think Steve Kerr fully really trusted him throughout. But I think the mainstay, apart from Steph, even though he had a bit of an off game in one of the series, in one of the games of the series, was Wiggins. He brought the energy, brought the size, the athleticism they needed, really, which I think was probably the Celtics' main advantage going against the experience, was their athleticism and their youth. And he just completely took it away from Jason Tatum. I'm not sure if we're expecting, one of those reports where like, oh yeah, he had a bit of a dodgy shoulder, something like that, or if he just was mentally. I think he was just mentally kind of finished by the end of that series. Really, he didn't even look like he was putting up much of a fight. But there's not many players of his age that can say they've been to a finals and been the best player on the team and led their team to a championship. Really, I don't think Kobe had done it at that age. LeBron definitely hadn't. So he was in pretty rare air, really, at that stage. So he's got to use this as a development opportunity, like I'm sure he will do, to get better. And yeah, I think the careless turnovers was definitely just a nail in the coffin for him, really. That their defense could only take them so far if their offense wasn't matching what the Warriors could produce. And it just didn't in the end. So you've got to give it up to the Golden State Warriors. I think I doubted them the entire way. I really wasn't hot on the Warriors coming into the playoffs because they were so poor second half of the season, really. If you look at their record, the second half of the season, they were like, I think 7th, 8th worst in the league from the All-Star break onwards, which is, pretty interesting. They were obviously saving their juice for these big moments. But the West is going to get a lot tougher next year, and that's what's quite exciting about it. They've got a lot on the payroll at this moment in time with Steph's, Clay, and Draymond are all on big money. Andrew Wiggins is as well. He's going to want to get paid. So is Jordan Poole. So But the thing is, they always invest the Golden State Warriors. That's why they're just a first class franchise. But
yeah, they'll just dip into the luxury tax. It's how it'll be. It's the phrasing of that you got to beat them off the court as well in terms of the checkbook. So yeah, I mean, I totally see your point. It can go one or two ways. They can see it as a big stepping stone, and it will be a big momentum thing for the Celtics next year. But there is a case of which then it can go the other way, and it's then Jason Tatum's head goes down, and that was your window, and other teams are going to be stronger next year. And I don't necessarily think that'll be the case, but I do think this was an excellent opportunity for the Celtics because I do think there are going to be a lot of teams stronger next year. So, but I mean, we say this every year in the playoffs of that it's their window. There'll be lots of teams stronger, but we'll have to wait and see from that.
I mean,
I think go on though.
I was going to say they probably don't get to the finals if Chris Middleton isn't injured anyway.
That's what I was going to say. I think the big team people look at who weren't at full strength this playoffs, who will probably be next year. I mean, you don't know what's going to happen over the course of the season, but the Bucks will be back, and I think at the moment, obviously, it's early and some trades might happen, but the Bucks are probably the team everyone would bet on come the start of the season if everything stayed as it was now, which it won't. But even with the trades, I think it'll probably be looking like the Bucks anyway. Yeah. What I will say as well, actually, is as well as Steph getting the Finals MVP, another thing that I think was very important as well, not as important as him finally getting that Finals MVP, but when we talk about players and where we rank them in history, you know, we look at obviously those accolades, but we also look at moments and legacy-defining games. And I think Steph really needed to have that legacy-defining game in the finals, and we finally got to see that as him as the front guy putting the team on his back. I think it was when they were down 2-1, wasn't it? And he had that monster game to bring it back, where it was basically just all him. A few players hit a few big shots here and there. But I think that game coupled with the finals MVP really did wonders for his legacy, which is obviously already cemented. But when you start getting into those top 10 conversations, you know, you have to pick and choose between very minute things, and they'll obviously be going in his favour.
Yeah. I mean, no one's picking KD over Steph now all the time, are they?
Yeah. It's that conversation. I think whenever we talk about greatest players, I always make the distinction between the greatest players of all time and the best players of all time, because I do think there is a difference there. And I think, you know, some people might still argue if you were saying who was the best player out of KD and Steph, I can see why someone would maybe go KD. But when we're talking about greatness, I don't think anyone can pick KD over Steph anymore, because he won before he was there and he won after he left. So
but these arguments are so they're flip-floppy, because 2 years ago people would be like, oh, you choose Steph over KD. If KD, say for example, we'll talk about what's going to happen with the Nets and KD later on, but if you're sitting there now and KD next year, let's say we live in this world right now where Kyrie Irving stays with the Nets and him and Kyrie play next year together. If KD drags that Nets team and they win a championship, then people are going to flip. Like, whilst they're still playing, it's hard to have these conversations, I think. That's true. And it's just anything can happen. KD could go to another team and he is a clear NBA Finals MVP, and then it's going to flip flop. So, but you know, we're in basketball media. We have to talk about it and go from that way.
Of course, it's a fluid conversation, isn't it? Really?
Yeah. I mean, personally, I wasn't as excited for this because I saw a thing as well. I saw a thing of the last 10 seasons NBA Finals teams like ranked in their ability. And in their ability, and also the entertainment factor, I think, was put in. But I think mainly it was based off of the quality of the basketball of the team that won the finals. And I did see, I felt this year it wasn't as exciting as other years. I don't know why. I don't know why I had that interpretation around it. But the one that I did see, and this is a Marmite flavor for it, was that the bubble Lakers team was number 10, and you see athletes flip-flop on either it being the hardest that they ever had to play or the Mickey Mouse Bubble Cup, and it's not even a chip, and they go from there. So, but I think this Celtic side ranked 8th in that list, and the one that was top was the Warriors side with KD when they beat.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the best.
That was it. And then the second one was the LeBron side, anyway. But It was, yeah, it's a bit of a funky one, but it was a bit of a, I don't know why. I think there was something lacking. I think there was quite a few like top tier superstars missing from this playoff run.
Maybe
is what I'd say. But you know, all in all,
I enjoyed this finals about as much as I did the one previously, the Suns versus the Bucks.
The Suns one.
I think you had that diamond moment of this, you know, the Drew Holiday steal, the lob to Giannis type thing. I wouldn't say there's a lot of top tier superstars. I mean, Giannis is a top tier superstar, but he's not. I mean, if you're looking for blockbuster names outside of LeBron James, really international, just in like the genuine like media sphere, LeBron James and Steph Curry are as big as you're gonna get, and then it's quite a big drop off. I think even KD, I think, is a drop from them to.
Yeah, oh yeah. I'm not just talking about names. I mean, just in general, there was quite a few sort of top tier talent missing for. I mean, the playoffs without LeBron is a bit weird anyway. But yeah, I mean, we was missing Kawhi, you're missing Paul George, and just stuff like that. Anyway, that's how it was a bit weird for me. But yeah, I mean, that's how I haven't really got much more to say for the finals. If either of you two have.
No, I think the next step after talking about the finals and what transpired is then probably top 10 start coming out and where we move people, and I think that's probably saved for another episode.
Yeah, we'll have a little summer break and then we'll come back to roster changes, because I think there's going to be a lot of movement going around from that anyway. What we will talk about is something a bit more relevant: the winners and losers of the NBA draft. There's one notable loser, is what I'll say, and I think this was pretty well known amongst NBA Twitter and the community for it. And you know, there's a few winners that you could go about. As mentioned before, definitely not an expert in this year's NBA draft. I know you two are a bit more clued up on it. So, do you want to take away some of the winners from the NBA draft?
I mean, for me, I thought Paolo Banchero was the best player in this draft, and he went number one. So I'm gonna give the Magic a preliminary W. I mean, it was quite strange. I mean, it depended on fit, but it was quite strange going into the draft because, you know, the odds were changing. It would. Yeah, I think you put something in the group chat the day before where it was coming out as Paolo was number one, when it was kind of not decided, but it was a bit of a given that they were going to go for Jalen Smith Jr. instead, and then it just seemed to flip. They didn't work out Paolo Banchero. They didn't. He had no basically knowledge that they were going to pick him at number one. So I thought maybe at the time, you know, maybe they're going for a cheeky bit of a trade, you know, that they take someone who they know someone else is interested in so they can get another asset or something like that. And it didn't seem to pan out that way. I mean, usually those types of trades, they go on the night. If they've not done on the night, then you can safely say they're going to proceed with Paolo Banchero. But I really like him. I'm intrigued to see how he fits with Franz Wagner. I like Wendell Carter Jr. I like the team, you know, Carl Anthony. Jalen Suggs wasn't good last year, but I did like him in last year's draft. So I like the team. But when it comes to you've got the number one pick and you're a terrible team who went 22 and 60 last year, I'm not really that bothered about fit. Do you know what I mean?
There isn't a fit.
Exactly. You
rip
just
it up
take
and
the
you start
best
again.
available player. And, you know, people will probably differ on who they think the best available player is, but I think his playmaking ability, his ability to, I think, get a bucket late on. His shooting definitely isn't as good as Jalen's.
Jabari Smith, sorry.
No, sorry, Jabari, yeah. So there's that to it. But yeah, I think overall, I think the top three ended up in pretty good places. I certainly like as well where Jaden Ivey fell at number 5 to the Detroit Pistons. Him and Cade, I think, will pair up quite well. A lot of people started to put him with, you know, the top 3 was kind of decided, and then they were putting Jaden Ivey in there as like this top 4 is firmed up, but the Sacramento Kings had other plans. So I think they got a nice little steal there. I know the New York Knicks were really interested in him, and I think Chet ended up in a good position as well for him. And I quite like the look of that OKC team moving forward. It looks a little funky. But so I thought there was quite, you know, I thought quite a few teams had a good few nights. I'll let someone get onto the more negative aspects of this.
Well, I mean, there's one more positive we haven't discussed, which I just think we need to do a little arc to. Great Britain's own Jeremy Sochan going nice, going to the Spurs. Louis, you probably was a bit annoyed that he went to a team called Spurs, but I mean,
well, he's going to the right Spurs. He said, to be fair, he's an Arsenal fan.
He is an Arsenal fan. I did see that. I mean, there's not. I mean, I can't say I'm going to Saturday night. I've watched his game from before.
No,
but,
I haven't.
I mean, you can look at the stats and some of the projections that come out of him. He's meant to be like a really good defensive 6'9" wing. So, and you know the way that the NBA is going, it's all about those tall hybrid wings. So we'll wait and see what he does. But you know, it's always nice to have a bit of UK representation in the NBA.
Of course. Nowhere near enough, is there really?
Exactly. That's what the Swingman podcast and Jeremy Sochan. That's what we need to aim for. Anyway, let's talk about some of the losers from the NBA draft. Lewis, do you want to kick off with the losers aspect? I think there's one name that we can necessarily go to straight away.
Yeah, it's just the Knicks. Obviously, a lot's been said about them, and when I think the main thing is every time you looked a bit more into what they did, it actually got a little bit worse. And yeah, you're saying this, so it all could work out in the end. Who knows? But you looked, okay, they're not picking. All right, what have they done? Okay, they've got 3 firsts. So that's all right. Okay, no, one of those firsts is going. And then you looked at the other 2 firsts and you looked into it and you saw how protected they were and what all happened to them based on the teams, how the teams performed. You're looking at you're like, oh, well, actually, it's probably not going to be a good pick. It's probably going to go further and further back. And you look at what they're probably going to be left with. And especially with the Knicks fans and how, you know, I'm not trying to have a go on, but how reactionary they can be, it's going to amplify it and make it even worse. But I can't say I'm a fan of what they did. And even though, you know, it sounds good that they got a couple firsts out of it, when you actually break down how they could play out, it doesn't look too promising.
The protections are quite heavy, aren't they, in all of those picks they got? And it seemed a bit to me like they were sort of moving heaven and earth, really, because I believe one of those trades, they got rid of Kemba. He went to Detroit, I think. It seemed like they were moving heaven and earth to get the cap space for Jalen Brunson, which, you know, I like Jalen Brunson, good player. I'm not sure I'd move heaven and earth for Jalen Brunson personally. That's my take. You know, I think you can get, say John Wall gets bought out, which is under discussion. You get him for like the minimum $7 million or something like that. Does he add much less than Jalen Brunson would for like a max amount of money? I don't know. They're clearly zeroing in on him. He's their guy. I shouldn't probably dissuade them too much because at least they have a strategy. The Knicks don't usually have a strategy. They go, you know, the Julius Randle, Jalen Brunson, RJ Barrett. It doesn't sound too bad of a team when you put it like that, but it's not setting anyone alight, is it really?
No, it's not. I mean, there's certain. It gets to a point where you're almost just like you feel it's like, the Knicks.
Yeah,
it's whenever and it's when we talk about sort of Knicks fans. Whenever there's a reactionary comment or anything, and I always just immediately go to when they beat the Celtics at home opener, and there's those clips of just every Knicks fan screaming down like a camera, like Arsenal fan TV style, and it just makes me laugh on the premise of that. But I mean, RJ Barrett's a decent player, but again, like you said, it's just Jalen Brunson's not gonna. He's not going to pull up any trees.
Like, I like Jalen Brunson. I just don't know if you needed to do that much to get him, basically.
Yeah, he's a very good player, but when you see how much they've moved things around to try and push for him, and when you see some of the other links, I know Stephen A. Smith went on a great little rant, putting it all together, and some of the other things with like Jalen Brunson's dad and the Knicks and things like that, and it does seem like it's a lot of work put in for what is a very good, very very good player, but when you see the amount of effort, you think it's probably a star that would be coming, but it's not to that level. Even though, obviously, as I said, Jalen Brunson is a very good player.
Yeah, I tell you what, he better go there. He better actually go there if they're making this much effort. It'd be a shame, you know. He turns around and goes, "Yeah, I want to stay in Dallas, play with Luka." Another not loser, I suppose, like a contentious one for me is Portland. I think they took Shaedon Sharp, who's quite highly rated for his ceiling. You know, people think he's got quite high potential, but he's a very much a project type player. And I'm not sure if that's what the Portland Trailblazers really need if they're trying to win now and keep Dame a bit happy. But you never know; it could go the way of Jonathan Kuminga. I remember he was kind of the same last year when the Golden State Warriors picked him, and he didn't really play much in the playoffs, obviously, but he contributed in the regular season. I think people can see there's a bit of a pathway for him there. So that's just another one I mentioned. Other than that, I thought people had good drafts. Memphis always have a good draft. Whoever they pick, I'm just like, they're probably good. Because that's just how they roll down there. But yeah, New York Knicks, Sacramento as well. I'm not entirely sure. Jaden Ivey was the obvious pick at number 4, but he obviously didn't want to go there, and they didn't want another guard. Again, that goes to the point: if you're a terrible team, do you really care about fit that much? But we'll see. I don't want to rag on the other guy they picked too much because I don't know that much about him.
Yeah,
I always like the draft in terms of the sort of 15 to 30 range in terms of your picks that you just don't even think of, and then they set the league on fire next year. There's always one that comes out that ends up being class. So I look forward to that.
I will say I didn't say who I thought the biggest winner was. For me, it was definitely OKC, and there was a little bit where people thought, if Jabari Smith Jr.'s fallen, are they going to stick to their guns and go with Chet at number 2, which is what was expected, or are they going to take the person they didn't think would fall to them? And they stuck to their guns. And personally, I think that was the right thing to do. I think of all the players in the draft, I do think Chet's got the highest ceiling, and I think he joins a very good young OKC team where they'll all be able to grow as a unit together. And I actually like the pick of Jalen Williams at number 12 as well. He's a guard with a 7-foot wingspan, which is mad. And he's just another player that they'll be able to put with that young lineup that can grow together. And hopefully in the future, we'll see Sam Presti's master plan come together.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to say, OKC do need to be good at some stage. You can flaunt these picks all you want as, wins or trophies or anything like that, but eventually got to get some wins on the table. It's getting to the point where like Shea, SGA is probably like midway through his career a little bit. So we kind of is he on the same timeline? He kind of is really, but
yeah, he's a little bit ahead. He'll be that
veteran presence
when we think they'll be good in like the 3 or 4 years. Yeah, not so much veteran, but that mature head,
experienced player,
be the lead guy for that team.
Yeah, I mean SGA is 23, so I mean when you're looking at some of the picks that they're going to get, if they've got like a 3-year window and they're looking at a prime in 3 years' time, SGA will be walking into as 26 years old. So that's sort of a good region to have as a base player, and then you never know what happens with some of the picks and trades and if they can sign someone. So the OKC are on the come up. Whether they get that sort of golden era of Harden, KD, and Westbrook, we'll wait and see. But I don't. We'll wait and see with the OKC. So I think we can do for it. But have we got anything else to add for the NBA draft?
No, I think that's about it. The only other thing I'd say is when you look at Jaden Ivey ended up going to the Pistons, the links between his family and Detroit, it does seem like a match made in heaven. So dodging the bullet with Sacramento is a very good thing.
Do you feel the same sense of sympathy for Sacramento as you do New York? Because New York, Sacramento have been suffering for a good long while now, and at least New York have had fleeting moments of like relative success.
I'd probably sympathise with Sacramento fans more than Knicks fans. Yeah, I'm not hating on Knicks fans. But I feel like the Kings fans are a bit more melancholy. Let's say they're not as upbeat as the Knicks fans.
I'm not sure if they've got a big presence really.
No, definitely not. Right, we'll move away from the NBA draft. We will discuss Kyrie Irving. It's not really been mentioned much in the news. It's I thought we'd talk about it. No, there's growing reports of Kyrie Irving's displeasure, shall we say, at staying in Brooklyn. Just before we jumped on, Woj reported that outside of the Lakers, there are no other teams currently looking into signing trade deals after Brooklyn told Kyrie Irving he could explore that if there were any teams available. Not that I think the Lakers are going to put a package together that will interest the Nets in any way, shape or form, which then means if Kyrie Irving declines his option of $36 million, he would be eligible to sign for the Lakers if he took a $30 million pay cut and $6 million a year. Now, obviously, to anyone that's listening or anyone in general, that would be just not a possible option. But we are talking about Kyrie Irving here and the lengths that he will go to possibly spite a franchise. So realistically, here, are we going to be seeing Kyrie at the Barclays next year?
It's a difficult one because they definitely look like they're at an impasse, and Kyrie obviously values himself much greater than what the Nets do. KD is obviously an X factor in all this, and what will happen with him if Kyrie and the Nets part ways. And Kyrie's obviously betting on himself here. I think the issue is when you look at the options available, if they do part ways, none of them really are the greatest fit or make the most sense. So you look at the situation, you think, well, it looks pretty irreparable, but at the same time, the options don't look great because we've seen reports of a lot of the other teams where it would make a lot more sense than the Lakers. Apparently, they aren't aggressively pursuing Kyrie, and they also, when you look at how much other teams are valuing Kyrie at the moment versus Kyrie himself, there is also a gap like there is with the Nets. So it's a situation that it's going to take a lot of time before it gets resolved.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that does seem like I don't think anyone's going to leave $30 million on the table. But if anyone's going to do it, it probably is Kyrie. I mean, he left money on the table this season when he didn't get vaccinated, didn't get paid for the games that he didn't play. Lost out on a shoe deal or a renewal of his shoe deal. He's lost money on that. Clearly, he's got enough money to live quite comfortably regardless.
I think there probably gets to a point where there's so many zeros on your bank account, it doesn't really matter.
But I think you do have to really think twice about taking that type of pay cut for it. But if it's ever possible, it's possible with him. I feel like it will just get to a staring contest a little bit, and they'll just play it out. I don't think he's going to opt out, and I don't think there's really a suitor, like you said, for him apart from the Lakers, and they don't have any options because I think I presented you with a sort of list of mainly sign and trades that there could be viable. I think one of them was about Jalen Brunson sign and trade with him. But if I was the Dallas Mavericks, I wouldn't want to bank my future on Kyrie.
Well, you wouldn't put Kyrie in the instance of a growing Luka, is what I think they'd probably look at.
Well, I just wouldn't want a guy who I don't know will play on any given night, really.
Could you see a sort of if it really, really starts to boil down and it got quite, I'm trying to think of a word that I can describe of the situation. If the situation got terrible, could you see a Kyrie opt out and go for a 1-year deal with the Lakers at sort of $6 million? Like LeBron and AD run at a chip.
I can't see a $30 million pay cut. I just can't. I know it's Kyrie, and everyone says if anyone would do it, it's Kyrie. That's such a drop. There's no way.
I could see it. I'm not gonna lie. I could see anything with him.
I could fully see Kyrie going, I'll sign a 1-year $6 million, because even if he plays half the games for the Lakers at $6 million, next year he'd easily get a 25-30 million contract free agent. I
don't know if he would.
No, I think he'd probably get more than that, to be honest. If over the year he proved himself, because the thing is with Kyrie, it's not the talent or the ability that's being questioned, because he is 100% worth that money. It's the dedication and putting the time in and how it'll affect the dressing room and all those kind of things that are being weighed up by teams here.
But, I mean, ultimately, as they say, the greatest ability is availability. And Kyrie Irving's kind of bad at turning up for his job, which is, I mean, I think I've grown to appreciate the other aspects of him, where he'll just be like, I kind of just don't feel like playing at the moment. Even if I don't agree with everything he does, I appreciate that he takes a stand for things, and he's quite principled in that regard. I wouldn't want to bank any sort of real long-term investment on him, because his body's been breaking down for years and he just doesn't turn up half the time. So I mean, you could say if he goes to the Lakers, proves himself, plays like a full season, but I just don't think that's going to happen.
Oh yeah, I don't think that'll happen either. I don't even think he'd signed, so that would be dead in the waters at the start.
I really don't think he'll be with Brooklyn next year. I can't see a way back in terms of the of it. I don't think even if they go, well, we're not going to play you. I just think he'd sit it out. I think they're at too much of an impasse now in terms.
He's not adverse to sitting out, is he? Really?
No. So, I genuinely I can't see a way in which he'll play. But I mean, time is a great healer, but I don't know. It just seems like it's a bit too far gone for me.
Yeah. I mean, this isn't just the Brooklyn situation. We've had example. He didn't really leave the Celtics on very good terms, did he? No. You can go stretching back to the Cavs as well. People have a little bit of sour taste in their mouth about that these days. That's why they always bring up, he left LeBron and everything like that. And I can see why he done it at the time, but you keep coming up with these instances where he's sort of not playing out the full season. He's not there when you need him to be, or there to really garner enough chemistry with his teammates. I can't see really a contending team apart from one who's really desperate, and that's of course the Los Angeles Lakers putting together, and they just don't have the package. So yeah, I guess it is a bit of an impasse, but I don't think he's going to opt out. So that's my 2 cents. So
yeah,
I can see him not. I don't think he's going to play the season. I think
maybe the Lakers do something that allows them to something else to happen, but then that obviously leads to another player and another contract, which is quite difficult to move. Yeah, so that would be a real miracle if they made that one happen and then the Kyrie happened. So.
It's definitely one to keep tabs on across the summer, and I think it's going to be an evolving one. I don't have it's. We record this on a Monday evening. I don't have the physical and mental capacity to discuss Russell Westbrook, so we're just going to park that because there'll be lots of Russell Westbrook discussion throughout the summer. We will end the podcast on a brief note. Is it Dame time for Kevin Durant? So I mean, we saw. Obviously, all the rumors going around with Kyrie Irving. We've seen the rumors of Kevin Durant being unhappy at the Nets regardless. I don't think he's mentioned the Kyrie situation on any of his social media platforms or his podcast that he does. But, I mean, you don't really have to be a genius to work out. He's probably not too best pleased with how it's gone with Kyrie and James Harden and that trio at the Nets. Following that, we saw Nikola Jokic and Damian Lillard post on their story an edit of Kevin Durant in a Blazers jersey. Now we've always discussed
Nurkic, not
Nurkic. Sorry, not. Did I say Nikola Jokic?
Yeah, Jokic would be cute. I don't think he has Instagram.
That would have been a turn up for the Nikola Jokic at the Blazers as well. Jokic. That's completely thrown me. That has. No, we've seen a lot of rumors throughout the years anyway with Damian Lillard trying to get some more help at the Blazers. Kevin Durant would certainly fit that mold, would he not? Could you see this happening, or is sort of Portland not really an attractive destination for KD and there's too many moving parts or something like that?
Well, I think for me, the main thing for KD now is just being put in. He just wants a franchise to put him in the position to be able to compete for titles. That's really it with him. I think we've seen before with when he talked about the relationship of him and other players on his team. He generally follows the ethos of leaving them to sort out, whatever issues or problems they need to sort out. And then for him, it's just focusing on playing basketball and trying to win it all. And I think that's the main frustration with him at the moment with the Nets is he doesn't feel like they're doing enough to put him in that position when he has given them, some great performances over the past couple of years. And that's why these rumors come up and you're looking elsewhere and you see the Blazers, you see Dame, obviously he's wanted some help as well. Could they join forces and make any difference? I think personally there's other teams that would come into the fray before Portland for KD, which would give him or put him in a better position. So I don't think it's the most likely outcome if he was to leave Brooklyn, but I mean, you can never say never, and it's if you were to weigh up Dame, KD on that Portland team versus the situation he's in now, you'd probably side with the Portland side to have a better chance of winning a chip.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I'm not sure if Portland can really put together enough of that appealing of a package, but when you go through all the packages for KD, it's always going to feel like you're coming up a bit short to the value that a player like him possesses, really. But at the same time, you do have to take the assets at some stage if he's really going to try and force his way out, which we're not at that stage yet, I would say. And he's always been quite defensive of Kyrie. He's always had his back. So that's probably why he's got some radio silence on this one. But he's got to get a little bit frustrated at the situation at some stage. I mean, I think it came out a little bit when, James Harden got traded and he was doing the All-Star draft. And he refused to pick James Harden. He's got a petty side to him. We all know KD has a petty side to him. And yeah, if Kyrie were to leave there, I think he'd be definitely trying to explore some opportunities. And I'm just not really sure where he would land. I think Dame and KD is a pretty formidable duo. I don't think it's. I mean, the West would be tough. It would be tough. There'd be a couple teams I'd take over a KD and Dame team personally, but it would depend on who they have around them as well. And to get KD, they'd have to throw in a lot of the good pieces in Portland, really. So I find that difficult.
I mean, the one team I'd throw out there, I don't have the trade and the contracts all sorted out, but I'd say one team I think that would be in position to maybe do something that would put him in a better position would be Miami. I think Miami could probably put together one of the better packages in the league for KD if they were to get rid of him.
Yeah, I've got one from the Phoenix Suns here, actually, which sounds quite interesting. But again, I mean, I'm looking at these players and I'm just like, whatever trade is going to be done here, because I just don't think there's like a player type asset that's going to really satisfy things. Although there is one on this webpage I'm looking at right now, which includes Zion. I'm not going to even try and unpack that. It's just too complicated at the minute. But I think whatever you're going to get sort of like a motherload of picks, which we saw with James Harden, obviously Anthony Davis. It's going to be something that, like a decent young player, a couple salary fillers, and just like a boatload of picks. But we're not at that stage right now, but I can see it kind of approaching, if I'm quite honest.
The result of the Kyrie situation, I think, will really be the catalyst for what happens with Kevin Durant in Brooklyn.
Potentially. I mean, I don't really think it could go in the way of which KD would leave before Kyrie would. But I mean,
no.
If Kyrie stays, KD will stay.
If Kyrie stays, KD will stay. But I mean, if we're going to speak hypothetically, which we have been for the past 37 minutes, if there is a world in which you can entertain the fact that KD gets annoyed and just wants to trade himself out before anything happens with Kyrie, I would just like to open up the Swingman podcast Twitter for all Brooklyn fans as an open therapy session going into next year with Kyrie Irving and Ben Simmons as your two main players, because you might see
completely forgot about Ben Simmons.
Yeah, a lot of the situations I've seen have got Ben Simmons kind of being singled out and maybe moved around things. And I'll say as well, whenever I look on any of our social medias, I do see a lot of Nets fans over nearly all other NBA teams. So as you say, they do want to vent out. We've got you.
Because I mean, 82 game season, you might see them on the court together about 5 times. So that would be it would be the roller coaster complete of starting off with the season of James Harden, Kyrie Irving, and Kevin Durant, and ending it with Kyrie Irving and Ben Simmons no longer playing. But that's the way the cookie crumbles in the NBA sometimes. I don't have anything else to add to this one. Do either of you two?
I've got one thing. Bradley Beal's situation is coming up also slightly. I believe he's eligible for a Supermax contract. Slightly, There is there's a lot of money on the stake on the table there. I think there's quite a lot of debate actually at the moment whether it's warranted the Washington Wizards really giving him a Supermax contract, because you give him a Supermax contract, you're limited with the rest of your team. You're probably going to finish about 11th seed as you do every season, where Bradley Beal's just leading player, best player on the team. So I think there's also quite a big possibility that he's on a different team come next season as well. But you never know with the Washington Wizards, they could always just offer him the Supermax and then not be able to trade him.
Most of the rumours and things I've seen surrounding that have said that he is going to stay in Washington and sign the Supermax. So
he would do.
If you get offered it, you're not going to turn it down.
If it's my opinion personally is that that's just he's just going to they'll offer him the Supermax and he'll sign.
But why? I don't.
I think It's hard to turn down that sort of money. He could get very, very not comparative, but very good money on another team. But it depends what the options are for the player and everything like that.
I'm not denying he would stay. I'm just saying, why would you give him a supermax contract?
It's the Wizards. It's these franchises. There's not really much more.
But even Charlotte didn't give Kemba Walker a supermax.
No, I know.
Yeah, but Bradley Beal's a much better player than Kemba.
But then you'd look at it and you'd go, Charlotte were probably right not to give. Well, that's
Bradley
the
Beal, they'll be right not to give.
That's what I mean. Yeah,
I think they should try and negotiate it down a bit. I don't know who you're bidding against, really.
I think they will try and negotiate it down, but at the end of the day, he'll probably turn around and go, "I'm the best player you're going to have for the next few years." So,
but then there could be the next couple of years with you. Surely, could you just not get? They could get a decent trade package. There'd be a lot of teams interested in Bradley Beal, and I think he's a good second, probably third best player on your team. I definitely don't think he's the best player. But yeah.
It's a tough one. It's a tough one. But again, all of this will come during the NBA off season. There's plenty of time for that. We've got a lot of days and a lot of months to go until we pick it back up. So if we talk about hypothetical trade situations all summer, it'll drive us bonkers. So what we'll do is we'll end that one there. Thank you very much for listening. Make sure you're following us on all of our socials at Swingman Pod. Check out our website at www.swingmanpod.com. We're going to have a little summer break now. Not really too sure for how long, but we'll still be active on all of our socials. But we probably won't be. We probably won't have a podcast for a couple of weeks, or if so. And yeah. It's been an enjoyable NBA season. We'll look forward to the next one, and we very much look forward to. I'll tell you what, the build up to an NBA season is almost one of my favorite things. It's the same in just in regular football. The predictions and trying to predict and have everything and all the excitement around it is very good. So we will catch you in the summer. Enjoy the little break, and thank you very much for listening, and stay safe. Thanks for listening. Peace.